Hi, everybody. Frank Gladstone here from ASIFA-Hollywood. And today we're going to be talking about the Mitchells versus the Machines with all the Mitchells. Well, or at least the Mitchells' alter egos. I'm going to do a quick introduction for everybody. First, one of the writer-directors, Michael Rianda. So hi, Michael.
Hey.
Okay. And a California boy, I understand. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Went to Cal Arts. I found it interesting that you discovered when you were 11 that you were you were an oddball.
a loser that wears sweatpants.
Yeah, a loser that wears sweatpants, which is great. And that, but eventually you kind of got through it by being able to draw and tell jokes.
Yeah,
which is a good thing. Eventually wound up at Cal Arts. And met I think you met Jeff there, right? You met Jeff?
I absolutely met Jeff there.
And have worked on a lot of things, worked for Pixar, worked for Jib Jab, other places, finally ended up at Disney doing Gravity Falls. Mm-hmm. And there you are. And now you're here.
Absolutely.
Okay. And the next one is, I mentioned Jeff already. Say hi, Jeff.
Hello.
Who's got a really nice blanket on his couch, just in case you want. They are for sale on Etsy.
Visit my Etsy.
And Jeff, are you guys met at Cal Arts, right? You're the same year, palled around.
Yep.
Yeah, got drunk together several times, I understand. Like that.
Maybe once.
Maybe once. And then both of you ended up working on Gravity Falls. You were you worked for Disenchantment, for Groening. You worked with Film Roman, Bento Box, Rubicon. Yeah. That's an interesting place. One day you and I can sit and talk about it.
I want to have that conversation.
And then finally ended up at Gravity Falls with this guy. I'll ask about that in a little while. And Lindsey Olivares, there you are.
Hello.
The smartest person on this crew, I understand. At television and worked. Now you were doing freelance mostly, Lindsey, right? Illustration freelance.
Yeah, I started at PDI DreamWorks, and then I did freelance for a while doing. Yeah.
Oh, so you were at PDI.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was there for a little while too.
Oh, nice.
Back and forth when they were taking over after Ants, and they were buying the place and everything like that. And eventually, you've worked for a lot of places: Nickelodeon, Google, Furry Puppet Studios, a couple places like that. And then Titmouse, and finally ended up, and also at DreamWorks doing Madagascar, Penguins, and then at Sony with Emoji, right?
Yeah, briefly, and then worked with.
And then the other Michael Lasker, where are you, Michael? Oh, up in the corner, who's the visual effects supervisor, and started at went to Syracuse University.
I did.
What do they call their football team?
The Orange. Well, they were the Orange Men. Now they're the Orange, and it was a great time. A little cold.
Right, and then you worked on Spider-Man.
Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, yes.
Right, and besides that, the Smurfs, Lost Village, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, Hotel Transylvania. So you spent some time at Sony.
Just a few years, about 15.
Yeah, okay, and last but not least, Alan Hawkins. There he is, who was an animation supervisor. Worked a lot at Sony. You were on the first feature. I think you've been on all of them since then, right, Alan?
Yeah, I started in 2004, about 6 months before open season began shot work. So. And
you've been doing it since then.
Yep.
We won't talk about all that moonlighting you're doing for the other studios, right? Okay. A lot of what I just said is not true, but just so you guys know. I have a few questions and stuff. The first question I have, I was intrigued by. I heard that there was a robot language.
Oh yeah, there is a robot language. If you wish to decode it, you can, and you're gonna get more jokes, baby.
How does that work? Where is the robot? I mean, I didn't realize it. I watched the movie. I didn't see a robot language. I didn't hear a robot language.
Well, it's actually it's mostly visual, and Lindsey really is really brilliant and worked with Jace Hansen.
Yes.
Thank you for who's wonderful and has worked on like every amazing Marvel movie, and he's like a total insane awesome pro. and they together with Toby, our director, and the whole team made this like very interesting, cool polygonal PAL language that we also have developed into a font that we can type with.
Wow. Well, so it is like visual. You find these clues, it tells you, and there's like trivia in there or extra stuff.
Yeah, I think it was the first version of it. It was, we were designing this like transport pod that they were in. One of our artists, Garrett Lee, was doing that set, and it kind of came up of like, yeah, what is their like UI and what are those graphics like? And I think he had the idea too of like, oh, there's codes, and then Mike and Jeff kind of ran with it of like, but what if there's like could we do like a QR code that you can like scan and takes you somewhere? And then we had this idea of like, what if we like played with this a little bit more? And so we also hired a lot of different specialists on the show, and so one of them was Jace, and so he was doing a pass at like, what are the screens on Pal's office? There needs to be, you know, some detail that it feels like there's something smart and, you know, the robot UI. And so it kind of was born of those things, and it's like the PAL color schemes, these little geometric shapes, and so wherever there's little patterns, you know, Mike and Jeff got in there and had fun with writing.
There you go.
Very specific fun jokes.
I decoded some of it recently because I was like, oh, I wonder if you can actually decode this. And then when I read the message, I started laughing maniacally. I'm like, hey, this is pretty good.
I've forgotten what a lot of them said, and I saw someone decoding it.
A lot of references to Ron. Wow.
Back in the ancient days when dinosaurs ruled the earth and I was a kid, you could get decoder rings. You would send away for a decoder ring or a decoder thing, and then you would figure out, you know, A was this, and it would end up being like a commercial.
Well, this one, it's just wacky jokes.
I noticed
story information important. You got to find it though, kids.
I noticed as well. There's a lot of you know, little references that go by that are cinematic references, especially you know, with the lead character in her room and on her wall and on her backpack are all kinds of little honorariums about movies and movie people. So your favorite movie folk?
Oh, sure. Are you just asking us to go around and list our favorite movie?
Yeah, what is your favorite movies?
Okay. I would say mine is it's corny, but so am I. It's probably It's a Wonderful Life. But I really love Hal Ashby movies like Last Detail and stuff too. But,
very good. Okay, you guys, he started the quiz. So Alan, I'm gonna go in the order I'm seeing you guys. Alan, who's next? What's your favorite one? Doesn't have to be animated.
My favorite movie, I'd say probably the most influential, if not favorite, is Terminator 2, because that's when I became aware of like computer graphics, and it was very, you know, influential on my life and all that stuff. I remember seeing like a little bit on like Entertainment Tonight on network television, you know, because obviously it was in the 90s, and just they were talking about like morphing technology and all this stuff.
Yeah.
From there, I don't know, I got curious about CG and all that kind of stuff. So if I trace it back, that's probably the big one for me.
It went into its bones.
Yeah. Yeah. Your favorite, Jeff?
Probably Mulholland Drive or Punch Drunk Love. I think I just like really like stories about desperate people that are told with lots of color and sound.
He's rather dark, isn't he? Lindsey, your turn.
I'm so bad at this question. For some reason, the one that comes to mind is more of a recent one and not like a formative one. Is I really love The Last Black Man in San Francisco. I think for like the world it kind of creates. I love places that like it kind of. I spent time in San Francisco too, and it feels like such a love letter to that, and the music and the look of it, and the cinematography. But I always love things that are really like, you know, similar to our movie, things that are kind of observed and real, like things like 8th Grade and Lady Bird, in, you know, recent movies. But you know, there's a ton. Things like The Shining I love, which we have a reference to that in the movie, which is a fun one.
Mike, you had the most time to think about this, so
yeah, I look at it as, what did I geek out the most in? Like, what did I get the most into? And it's very close between the Star Wars original trilogy in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I read every book they published, everyone. I was gonna say Mulholland Drive, Jeff, but you took that one. But I'd say the Star Wars original trilogy. With me, you just can't beat that.
Well, that's pretty great. I teach a class or have taught a class in live action film for animators. I've taught it several times, and it's very interesting the films that influence people who work in our business are often not animated, you know. So I'm not going to tell you mine. You just have to guess. Okay, King Kong, 1933.
Nice.
The original one. I'll watch it anytime. Okay, we have questions coming in. We have lots of questions coming in. So I'm going to go ahead and start one, which is a question I was going to ask too, from Dallas. Eric and Deborah bought 5,000 were hilarious. I know the Mitchells are based on your own family. Were the two robots based on anyone in anybody's life here?
I don't think so. I mean, them robots were kind of based on a comedic premise. And then they became characters. It was sort of like, oh, isn't it funny if a character that talks really intelligently, like, it's like, it's like, I don't know what a hand is or something. So that's sort of where it was born out of. And if you really want to get deep, I realized about 3 years into the movie that I might be stealing the concept of the dumb robots from the stupid rat creatures from Jeff Smith's Bone. Whoops. But I love those. And I just like, I was like drawing a scene with those guys, even though I usually didn't draw. That's not my forte. But I was doing, I was like doodling. I was like, oh, these are like the rat creatures. But not based on any actual person. But I will say Fred Armisen and Beck Bennett really injected their own life into it. And it was really fun seeing those guys work because we had this idea of what the dumb robots talk like, and it was really fun seeing somebody else's take and seeing how much they're bringing to it.
Well, their whole like original comedic premise was they just like wanted to kidnap humans. Like, would you get in this truck, please? Like very like maybe if we give you this gift, then you'll let us capture you. Like they were very polite about it. And
yeah,
then,
it was like, look, there's a human ride you can go on, and it's just a bear trap or whatever.
Yeah.
I got caught.
No, but they're also kind of, outcasts as well, or oddballs, and the family is a kind of an oddball family, and then you have that other family that is like perfect, right, to compare with, and I know that it was initially the idea came sort of Mike R from your oddball family, as you said, your funny, unusual family. The interesting thing was all the rest of you have families too. Did you identify with the families as well? Because I have a feeling many of us think our families are kind of crazy. So I know I do. So I wonder, did you identify with the families or with any of the characters personally?
I mean, I was very, artsy growing up, loved drawing and being creative, and I had a little brother, so I really liked the Katie character, and I wasn't as friendly with my little brother as she is with Aaron. I just really loved, I loved the Katie character and just how creative she was.
I'd say probably most people that worked on the movie have a lot in common with Katie because there's so many, it's a team of artists. So most of them probably went to art school and their families had varying degrees of support or not and all that and everything in between. So I think just like it almost caters to the crew with her specifically.
Anybody else kind of say that's kind of me in this picture?
Yeah, I can agree with that. Like feeling relating to Katie, but also I feel like the specificity that's in there that's really observed. I feel like in ways too, I find myself relating to characters like that I don't necessarily relate to. Like I can relate to Rick in a lot of ways, and that's not really my experience at all. But I think it really shows like the authenticity that's in there. That I feel like you can find yourself in a lot of them, even if they're not like very literal to you, because they're so like genuine.
Yeah.
Say that because my daughter just went to college, and when I came on the project, it was like, oh, it's a daughter going away, and that really spoke to me. So yeah, I can totally identify with Rick also.
I identified with Rick because computers and I have a love-hate relationship, and most of the time it's hate. So his frustration when the ding, you know, that was me a lot. And I interestingly, as I'm watching it and knowing the animation community, the school she's going to looked a lot to me, not physically, but reminded me of Cal Arts. It seemed to be she was going to Cal Arts.
Yeah, I think sort of when Jeff and I were writing it, we were thinking a lot about sort of Cal Arts and stuff, right? I mean, like at some point, it was like we had her going to this really specific summer program part of it, and it was like we knew about. It's like CISA, and it was like nobody knew what CISA was. So sometimes it gets too specific and it gets so narrow. But yeah, I think Jeff and I both had that experience of having a dream and leaving town and that sort of thing.
We both got rejected multiple times, so it's like we relate to that. Like, oh, like this is I've put a lot into trying to do this.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then like visually, we're like, you know, it's like Cal Arts looks like a cool 70s hospital, which like you put into a film doesn't equate to like, oh, this is the idyllic picture of college. So it's like we had to go red brick building.
Yeah.
Lindsey designed a northeastern school.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more like the icon of it.
Yeah, you know,
it's a lie about Los Angeles film schools.
Yale Art School. Now, there's another question from David. When you watch a film like that with the fast pace as an audience, you want to watch maybe more than once to revisit things you probably didn't catch. Was that part of the design to get people to watch it more than once?
I would say, follow that instinct, watch it again and again and again and again, tell your friends, like, see how many times you can watch it, 10, 20, 30.
How many devices can you stream it on?
Can you watch it on at the same time? We need those clicks, people. No, I think that part of it, at least, from my, I would say that the team on my right, I don't know if they're on your right or whatever, are so wonderful that they just put so much into it that it's sort of, and there were so many ideas that we loved, and Alan's team put so much like love into the animation where in the foreground there's some animation, but in the background, like Rick's doing this, or there's some extra little bonus joke or moment or character insight if you look closely. And Lindsey's team just stacked details on details on details. So Jeff wrote this like wonderful dialogue that has like double meanings and stuff, and we put all these jokes in the background, and Mike's team sort of lit the hell out of everything. So it's so beautiful. You would want to watch it again. I mean, like, so I think it was all of us just trying to throw everything we had in our bones at the screen, and hopefully that's, and also just knowing that people pay attention to that stuff, and valuing people's attention. So hopefully if they're watching closely, they'll be rewarded.
And also as a credit to Mike's team, as you're saying that, like, giving us the patience and space to like focus on that stuff, like in lighting and in lighting reviews, and be like, oh, this background joke isn't clear. Can we adjust that with notes? Like normal things that would be unheard of. Like you embraced so thoroughly what was happening and supported it.
Totally. Agreed.
It's an incredibly freeze frameable movie. Like there's, and all from the art, like any Katie Vision thing has like so many elements to it. Like you want to sit there and stop on the things you can read what was written.
I stopped it a few times just to check things out,
Yeah.
I've got an animation question that was one that I was thinking of as well, so I'm going to probably add stuff to it. This is from Ezra. I've noticed that film, the hands for each character, the poses they take, and even details and the textures is more detailed and precise than almost any other animated film I've seen. I think talking about CG animated films. They're almost characters in themselves. What was it intentional from the beginning, or did it develop that way in production? And I did too. The characters look as if they were animated traditionally. even though I know they weren't, and they were shaded. We've seen a few films like that where either they're animated traditionally or they look as if they were, and they did. So was that part of the design here? Was that part of the deal?
Well, I think that is really flattering, so thank you. But I feel like that is a credit to Alan and his team. Alan was sort of like Professor X with his team of talented youngsters.
It's actually Lindsey that, I mean, all the hand character stuff specifically, I mean, that was in the drawings, and I remember that being a thing from, I mean, we executed it and the animators, cared about that stuff, and we had our model sheets on the walls of like, yes, hands, no hands, yes, eyes, no eyes, for like how to the do's and don'ts of it. But I think those designs came from Lindsey's character design stuff early on like that. We didn't have to do much to that. It was just a matter of like, okay, that's a really unique particular shape. And it's a great thing to give a lot of attention to, because hands are a very expressive part of a character. You look at, faces and hands are like the first things, eyes, mouth, hands. And CG can be very rigid in the hand shapes. There's not a lot of personality to them unless you really work hard to fit that in there. And so we did have some pretty particular rigging controls for moving the volumes around and adding tapers and doing unconventional like shapes for the knuckles and stuff. And it was really fun. It gave it, a very nice step away from standard out of the box CG kind of stuff. But really it was all from Lindsey's character designs, and then we just took it from there.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I guess like hands to me just feel very human, and the movie's very human and about humans, and it felt like they could feel like the characters. Like if Katie's can feel, there's things in the surfacing like how she draws on them, but just the posing too, it felt like it was appropriate. Like they're a big part of like they show the life we live. Like my hands, I feel like they've got like my calluses from drawing a lot, and like I can't hold a pencil the right way, and I think there's something very human about like those specifics. Like Aaron's fingernails are like chewed up, they just feel like a little wiggly and irregular, so it felt like a nice thing to just kind of like push more human imperfections.
But even just the style of the animation, I mean, it did look as if you were working towards this kind of traditional, for the human characters. I'm not talking about the robots now. I'm talking mostly about the humans, that they looked, I guess it's not a fair term, but they didn't look CG. They looked traditional, and they had a traditional feel to them.
Well, and also, another thing in terms of just what we were trying to do from a broader perspective is like for the whole movie, from the production design to the script, all that stuff, our goal was, sort of goal up high on a mountain, hopefully we got close, was to sort of be really observational. And I've seen my little nephew go like and like I've seen people sort of I think Rohini did this great scene where Katie's like pulling her finger hard, that in a way that I've seen people do in real life, and it's like, oh, and whenever that happened, we were always like, that's it, and we got so excited because it felt like a real thought process. And so we tried to use the hands as much as possible, and occasionally sometimes the hands would be out of frame. I'm like, get those hands in there, just because they're so expressive, right, as I'm expressing them.
Yeah. Now I'm going to go to an unusual question. There's more than one environment here. There's the environment of the real world. There's the environment of the PAL labs, and there's also Katie movie environment as well. In those environments, which had to be designed and work differently and have different rules, there's also effects in those environments, different kinds. So I'm going to go to Mike L on this one. Once Lindsey just got these designs and everything was okay, did you say, okay, we're going to use certain kind of effects here and certain kind of effects here to fit the environment?
I think when I first came on the project, Mike said, we want a human world and a robot world. And we want these characters to be able to fit in this handmade world, and sort of as the movie goes along, things get cleaner and sharper, and we have the robot world. So we had to build this painterly look of picture style that we could sort of change as the movie went along. So everything that existed in the human world was more irregular, more painterly. And then as we got into, say, Pal's office, the robot city, things were very sharp and clean. And the effects that we would create, we would simulate explosions and do things how we typically do them, but we used very painterly textures within them. And then we had 2D animation effects artists actually draw effects on top. So that way the effects kind of blended with the style. And then on top of that, we had Katie Vision that Lindsey would create. And what was cool about that was that it was so tied to the performances. We would start creating that very early on in the pipeline. So when animation would get launched, Lindsey and her team would look at the animation and start conceiving what they were going to do. And then by the time we got into lighting, we could get the Katie Vision and integrate that. So it was a layer in the final composite. So we had our painterly look, and then we had Katie Vision on top, and we made sure everything fit together and very cohesively.
It worked pretty great, and it seems to fit. It wasn't anything that would be like, oh, look what they did. But it worked for the environments. It was really pretty great. Got another question here. How did Mike end up doing Aaron Mitchell's voice? I don't know how.
I knew a guy, baby. No, this is something I'm embarrassed about. So it's not our proudest moment, because ideally you would have another actor bring something new to it. But I think we had a lot of really great actors and actresses who were really funny and more talented than me. But ultimately there was something about my scratch voice that was sort of that audiences were reacting to more than other voices, which I sort of regret. But I the only thing I could sort of pin it to is that, I'm a little brother of two 10-year-old, two siblings that are 10 years older than me, and I still remember them leaving home for college, and I was very sad. So maybe that vulnerability is still within me, and bubbled up in these sort of scratch performances and stuff. But it really was just sort of, it was the thing that worked, and we were running out of time.
So, and it does happen, Did you have to get a SAG card?
I already have one. No, I played two goofy characters in Gravity Falls, and they reluctantly gave me a SAG card. They're like, all right, take it. So I still have it.
Another one. There are some rather funny and a little bit how should I say it, self-deprecating remarks, or not self-deprecating, deprecating remarks about the internet and the omnipresence of online life. Sure. And there's little throwbacks towards, maybe we could say, Facebook. Nobody's announced, but there are subversive comments, which are very, very, very funny. Was that part of when you guys started developing this, or did that kind of happen as you wrote the script?
I think that, I think a lot of those came from either Jeff or Chris and Phil, who were sort of sharper about that stuff than I was. I feel like Jeff was always putting in jokes like, just sort of jokes poking at the sort of tech monopolies and stuff. Just because.
I thought that came from you. I thought that was I was like,
oh really?
Yeah.
All right, hey. No, well, I mean, I think the thing was, it was like, we wanted to be like really pro-human, because I always loved those Miyazaki movies where you really understand where everyone's coming from. Even if they're a villain, they have a reason. So I didn't want to make the main, Mark, Eric Andre's character, evil for evil's sake, or like, I'm an evil capitalist. He's just kind of a goober who's like, oh, this is an opportunity and I'm just going to take it without thinking about it. So it's easier to make fun of the tech companies themselves rather than the people inside them, because you look at each person, I think they do have kind of good intentions, but within this sort of structure of a corporation, those intentions all kind of fade away, and people's worst selves kind of come up sometimes.
Did you have fun writing those things, Jeff?
The ones I did, yeah. That's my favorite style of joke, probably.
I'm gonna go to another. I want to talk about Katie Vision a little bit, and how that came about, And Lindsey, was that more fun than anything else? But how did Katie Vision happen? Was it an initial idea? Was it initially in the script, or did it kind of?
It was initially in I don't remember when it first started, but it was in the boards. There was, Mike might know a little bit more about the origin of when that first came up as an idea, and then I can talk about, I guess, how it evolved.
Sure. It was like, that was like a, what if we could do this? Kind of idea really early on. I remember one of our first, because Lindsey was the first person I hired onto the movie. And I remember one of the early assignments was like, oh, have her like right on the screen, because that would be fun. But we didn't really have that distinctive a purpose for it. And when we realized that if we could tie it to her point of view and her emotions, it started actually making sense. And it was like, oh, it's like she's editing the movie. You get to see her perspective throughout the movie. And then it actually like worked, as opposed to just some goofy thing that a bunch of film students wanted to try to do. And Lindsey was so great because like there were several points in the production where I would say the production was like both not asking for Katie Vision and might be considered hostile towards it. Because it was some weird extra thing, and they're like, what are you, this movie's already hard, what are you just gonna, it's like, oh yeah, I've never jumped on the diving board, let's do a triple Lutz. And we're like, why not, that sounds fun. So Lindsey, like a renegade, would do some in her office without telling anyone.
It was a little bit of a tricky pipeline thing. It was a new thing to figure out how we do it. But we had some good, I gotta say James Adams, my coordinator, like really helped kind of build a little system to track it and to get shots from Mike Lasker's team that we could work on and try and figure out like at what stages we do it in. But yeah, it was something, Mike Rianda and Jeff with their board team, they did a couple bold moments, and it felt like it clicked for me too. Like there was a point that I was looking at like the global visual structure and like how do we, with color, what can we do to highlight like the robot takeover and what that's like. And I had this like graph for like Katie and how she's feeling, like her closeness to her want and how desperate or excited she's feeling. And it was like, it could have been something maybe with a Katie color or something, but it was like, there's this element that they're playing with in the boards that could be that thing that experience how she's feeling with her. And it felt like something that was this missing element. Like we were establishing the look of picture with the kind of human handmade render look and the contrast to the tech world. And it was like, this is our main character that you really need to like love and work and and she needed to really work in a really strong way. And there's a point that in the design phase with her, she got more successful when she was like spilling out of herself, like she was drawing on her shirt, on her hands, and it kind of felt like a continuation of that idea. Like, can she spill onto the frame, and can we just draw on these renders and be kind of like her about it, and a little bit free and experimental collage photos, 2D drawings that are a little raw, they're a little young, there's some like weird anatomy, like we would try to kind of go a little bit more naive and quirky about it and play with mixing live action puppets. And like Mike was talking about, we really mapped that onto her so that it was ideally always enhancing the story moment. That was a big challenge, was that it wouldn't pull you out and distract you from it. So that was a big thing of how can we make this really support the story.
Yeah, so those were the most joyous meetings.
Now, how did the animation department feel about all of this? Well, so they had to animate this kind of interesting, high school senior animation. So,
no, actually, this is an interesting thing people may not know, but it was a unique process. But I enjoyed intentionally not. It happened after animation was done. It was always, so we didn't like leave room for it in the frame. We didn't like plant seeds about what the animator wanted in the scene. There was a couple times where an animator did mock up their own version of it, and I was like, nope, it's like it should feel like it's the movie exists and then she drew on it kind of thing. And one, it saves me a lot of time because it was very busy, obviously. But conceptually, I think it's great anyway, just because I think it works really well with as if she had drawn on her own film kind of thing. Like you shouldn't leave staging for it. So that was all Lindsey and like one other person.
Yeah, I did some like early tests for it. I did a couple of the first ones, like, could we do this when we were trying to make like a production case and plan for it? But most of them were animated by Alice Lemma, and Lily Nishida did a lot of design work for them. And when they were kind of like a big card that would pop up, Lily Nishida did a lot of those. And then Alice Lemma was working for us as a character designer. When I kind of evolved from character designer to like the combo with production designer, Alice was one of the character designers that came on to help, and she was really wonderful. And I remembered she had a student film that was 2D animated. So we were like, oh, Alice, do you want to start doing these animations? And she did a wonderful job, and she did the bulk of them.
Yeah, because before it was just Lindsey, like Lily, who is like this great artist, was like literally like, I saw her at her desk and she had like the bouncing ball tutorial on, and she's like, I don't know what I'm out of my depth here.
Yeah,
and we're like, no, that's fun. It's like, it's naive. And she's like, I don't know how to do this. And then luckily Alice was like, I know, I'm really good at this. And it was,
Katie Vision was like nothing.
So, but to me, there was two Katie Visions. There was Katie Vision where stuff would happen in the screen. And there was Katie Vision when you'd see her movies.
Oh, sure.
That was a different thing. That was another kind of Katie Vision, the movies of the pug and the police car and the sticks and all that kind of really great early movie stuff. And that was animated in a different way, of course. So
that stuff was animated by Alan and his team. So it was like, it was really a combo, like, and those guys had a ton of fun with that stuff. That was always like,
and it is another look. So really, I see like 4 worlds in here: the real world of the family, the pal world, Katie Vision, and then Katie movie vision.
There's a lot.
They all work together. I have a couple questions. First of all, Jeff and Mike, you worked on Gravity Falls together, yeah? And now
we only overlapped like 1 week. But
it was a powerful.
It was the best week.
So here's my question: when you guys get fights, who usually wins?
Mike.
Well, that was sort of like our agreement, is because in the beginning when we were writing the script, we didn't really have that, and we were just go at each other. Like, it was wild. Like, we would have these yelling fights where it's like, Jeff, we can't open the movie in a Buca di Beppo with Rick, with Katie basting a turkey with NyQuil and feeding it to Rick. That's insane, And then him being like, it's the best opening.
From a story perspective, it makes her an active protagonist.
Hey, he's not wrong.
But
it was very compelling, but I was like, they are going to fire us if they read this.
Well, then going from there, Lord and Miller were involved in some way, how are they involved? How do you think they influenced the picture or not? Did they show up all the time? Did they give notes? What happened?
Initially, I just thought they were kind of like our cool uncle who drove by in their Spider-Verse Corvette every once in a while. And we're like, oh, do you want to come see our baseball game? Oh, there they go. Man, they look cool. They're like, here's some notes, kids, fluttering in the wind as they fly by. But actually, it was funny because I think when we started getting serious about really doing the movie, because we were sort of, just working on animatics and stuff, that's sort of when they drilled in a really wonderful way. And in it, it's like the fun thing about, or like the thing about, I feel like me and Jeff, is that we're really iterative, and we're like, let's try this. Oh, that's funny. Hey, let's try a new version of the scene. Like, no one is better at writing like a first version of a scene than Jeff, who's just like, we'll just, like he wrote the whole third act, like it came out in like 2 hours. And I was like, this is amazing. It's done. What happened? But with those guys, they are even more iterative, where they're like, let's do 50 versions of every scene. Let's try 20 versions of this moment. And it's really interesting, because at first it's really intimidating. You're like, you just can't do that. That's great. You're a crazy person. And while it is kind of intense sometimes, it's also the way the movie got a lot better. It's like, every little moment is inspected. You know, we go through with those guys every single moment of the movie, you know, comb through the movie, and it's like, what if this could be better? Maybe this could be better. Maybe this could be better. Maybe this could be better. And it's like, you just tighten those screws one by one. And, you know, you tighten it by trying 5 things, and you don't even have to try them that well. You're just like, you know, you just kind of say it into a microphone. You're like, I don't know, maybe, come on, Dad. I don't know, is that right? You know, and then like Jeff is in the room and Chris and Phil are in the room, and they're sort of like pitching stuff out. And we try to sort of make the movie a little better each time we go through. And it's such a foreign process to me, because I'm used to like, you get your top priorities, and then you move down to second priorities and third priorities and fourth priorities. But they're like, no, just go through the whole movie and make every little moment better. And it works. It's wild, but it works. And they were really wonderful.
Did that include notes on when animation was done, notes on effects, notes on you know, production design, character design, or was that just kind of in the front? And
I mean, no, they were like, I would say they were most involved in the editorial process. Like, I think they sort of like, you know, the you know, like Lindsey and Alan sort of had their stuff together, and Mike were all like, they were doing fine. It was like me and Jeff were like, is this how you make a movie?
They were basically beating up the directors.
Yeah, but it was awesome, because they're kind of like, you know, their experience with Cloudy, they've mentioned, is like a lot like our experience on this movie. So it was kind of like having time travelers from the future be like, hey, you know, the studio will tell you this, don't trust him. Also, you know, go through the movie 5 times, try to make it better every time. Also, that scene sucks, I gotta go, you know, and then they would, you know, peace out. But it was really great working with them. It was like going to animation grad school or something.
I've got a couple of questions that are kind of funny, and I happen to know the answer to one of them, I believe. Stephen asks, just out of curiosity, whose idea was it to introduce the Furbies and pitch the idea of Pal's evil Furby plan to send the humans into a trip to the black void of space forever? The Furbies, Lindsey, because I happen to notice there was a Furby.
There's one.
Yeah.
You see him? There he is. I think that was all.
Where did that come from, guys? Where did the Furbies come from?
I think one of the ways it came was we were trying to come up with, you know, Roombas and refrigerators and stuff, like, because it's really, we were trying to make it like the jokes as specific as possible. And there's nothing more specific than that insane face. So I think one of my buddies, Alex Hirsch, who made Gravity Falls and was a consultant on it, showed me a picture of a Furby with a melted face. And it's the most horrifying image you've ever seen in your life. And then I was like, that's insane. Well, let's put that in the movie. And then I think me and Jeff one day were writing a mall scene where the Furbies were talking like the Lord of the Rings people. And it was like the funniest thing in the world to us. And it's like, I think at one point Jeff wrote some line like, no, the Furbies tell us what to do now. And I think he wrote like, now is the time to kill.
Oh yeah.
And it was that was like the most fun day we had writing. We're just laughing maniacally. And we're like, well, let's just try it. And we had the board artists do it. And again, when they pitched it, we were just losing our marbles. And it felt like the type of thing where it's like, a lot of the things in the movie were like, well, we'll put this in just to show that we're funny, but we'll probably have to take it out later when, because the studio isn't going to want to get sued. But it turns out you just have to wildly hunt down people at Hasbro and write them nice letters about how much you love their product. And because we think Furbies are funny and fun. And I hope, Furbies have a resurgence from this.
I don't know. Remember what happened with Reese's Pieces and E.T.?
Yeah, hey, exactly. Hello.
And then that reminds me of another thing. We had a question from Michelle about, it's very funny. There's lots of jokes in it. Did the jokes basically come from the writing, or did some of them come from storyboard sessions from your story artist? I know that a lot of stuff is written on the board, so.
There was, we tried to, I think in the writing, have like a baseline of comedy and like joke per minute, like just to kind of set the tone and pace. But so many of the best jokes came from Guillermo, came from edit sessions, came from people in different departments tossing things out. Like it was a team effort.
Totally. I mean, because we love to laugh, and we sort of tried to open things up as much as we could to the story team and you know, the biz dev team and whoever was around, like, hey, do you have anything that's funny, you know? And they always did. So even though sort of, you know, me and Jeff wrote the script, I mean, it's like everyone tossed stuff in. And a lot of the jokes also came from those edit sessions, either with Chris and Phil or Jeff or me talking into a microphone, you know, just sleepily trying jokes out. And sometimes they'd really work and sometimes they wouldn't. So it was like a combination of trying to put that stuff in at every stage of the production, just because we like to laugh, and we're goofballs.
We're getting to the end here. Everybody, you know, has other things to do, and we could probably go on for another quite some time. But I have a question here, and then I've got a couple of questions that I'm asking everybody as we go through, because everybody, you'll see in a minute. But this one's from Ross. It says, I was impressed with Katie's relative calmness when her laptop and phone were destroyed. I assume that she had good backup of her parents. Even more so, I love the subtle mention of her love interest. Can you talk about that moment and the reaction to it?
Sure. Yeah, no, I think I'm glad you sort of like, you know, I'm glad people are sort of reacting to that positively, because we really love it. And like, it was basically, you know, with the whole movie, we're sort of trying to reflect real people and real families that we know and love, you know, and we have a lot of members of the crew that are LGBTQ plus. And we're like, when we were talking about maybe that as an idea, we talked to them and they were super excited, like, oh my God, do it. Yes, of course. You know, and that sort of got us excited, and we're like, okay, this seems great. And sort of, but there was like a real push and pull with in terms of how much to put in the movie, because, you know, me and Jeff are not the, you know, I would say the, you know, right people to tell a really involved story about that. But we felt like with talking to the crew and working it through, we sort of found an amount that felt comfortable to everyone, that felt like it was like honest and not drawing too much attention to it and all that stuff. And the crew felt really good about it. And we talked to Glad, and, you know, sort of, we tried to sort of do it right. And, and I'm sort of glad that people are
recognizing it.
Yeah, that people are recognizing it and sort of feeling seen through it, which is wonderful, and which is all we hope for.
Okay, I've got two more questions. The first one is, and I ask this of everybody because it's been a weird year. We all know that. And I know it affected the date release for your movie and how it was going to be released and everything like that. How much of the movie was done from home?
The last 10%, maybe? What do you guys think?
I was going to say 10.
So we actually completed more than 10% of the shots going. I thought it would be like 30%.
A lot more, yeah, at least in Anim. Because let's see, we had a really large crew that went up till December, and then we kind of shrank down for what was planned to be, I don't know, 4 or 5 months to about 60 people. And we started working from home when we were into that. So yeah, we were moving slower because it was a smaller group at that point. But we were doing quite a bit in animation still, I think, when we went home, if I remember right.
That's probably true. It's probably more than I realized.
Yeah. So, but it worked okay. I mean, you know, it's maybe not optimum, but you got everything done, and didn't slow up I know it slowed up the process a little bit because you had less people on it, but seemed all right.
10% because you were on for 5 or 6 years, Jeff.
Yeah.
So 10% of your experience of it. But,
yeah, totally. That might be it.
The artists were extremely productive working at home, and we really just we rolled right into it, and everyone was really flexible and resilient, and it was good. It all worked out really well.
Yeah,
it
was very impressive how smooth of a transition it really was. You know, for me, I noticed there were like quirks of like, I'm in my own space and I'm not in a theater. So for lighting reviews, there were things like that that proved tricky that we adapted to. But I think for my department, on the art side of it, it was nice because by that point, we knew each other so well and we were in a rhythm. And I think with all of us, so by the time that we transitioned to being work from home, I think it was relatively smooth. You kind of had your shorthands with people and we were all really comfortable working together.
I think so. Yeah, and it has been for our industry in general, for the live action industry and the theater industry and other entertainment, it's been very, 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 very bad. But for animation, we've been fortunate. I mean, it hasn't been optimum, and but it hadn't hit us as hard.
It was really nice that we didn't have to like lose a bunch of people or whatever. It was nice that we got to keep all the crew, and live action teams weren't as fortunate. So
the last two questions are you all on other projects now? Have you moved on to the next show? What can you say about that, or not?
I'm sleeping, but these guys are doing cool stuff.
So I'm making a Ninja Turtles movie on Nickelodeon. It's gonna be amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. And some people, how's everything? Mike L, how about you?
All I can say is I'm the visual effects supervisor on the sequel to Spider-Verse. On that, I can't say a word.
Don't say anything.
Just show them a little bit, Mike.
Give us a title and the plot. Lindsay, anything? You busy?
Yeah, I'm on a project that's in like the early days over at DreamWorks.
Good. And Alan? Well, you're probably animating the next thing.
Yeah, we went right to work on, or a large group of people went right to work on Hotel Transylvania 4 right after Mitchell's wrapped. And we're almost done with that. So this almost feels nostalgic because
yeah, that's true. It's been a while. And finally, I have a big question. It's very important about the dog. Now I understand, I don't, Menchie, right? Or
Monchi.
Monchi's really cute. Probably a lot of people want to buy pugs, little fat pugs that look like bread. But I understand that instead of using an actor to do the voice, the noises, that it ended up being Doug the Pug. Is that true?
It certainly is. Doug, come on out, little buddy. Here is Doug the Pug. No, he's not here. Check under your seats. There's a pug. But no, it was basically like we were trying to. It came from a very practical place, which was like, man, I wish we had some real dog noises in there. I was like, it's just me going like, and then, which by the way is pretty good. But no, it was like we wanted sort of more authentic noises for the dog. And then the studio had some funny ideas where it's like, I think sometimes when you're not directing people, you sort of have a different idea of what. They were like, well, Jessica Alba has a pug. Maybe Jessica Alba can play Monchi. And I was like, can you imagine sitting in front of a famous and wonderful actress, Jessica Alba, and being like, can you snort louder into the microphone, Jessica? It's an undignified position to put an actor in. So I was like, let's just get a dog. And then they're like, what dog? And I was like, I don't know. Can we get Doug the Pug? And they're like, I think we can do it, and I wrote Doug the Pug's owners a nice letter because I love pugs and Doug the Pug is cute and I follow him on Instagram. I was like, why not, man? They were down.
Could you ask Doug the Pug, look, can you do that 3 ways?
Yeah.
Give us 3 snorts.
Doug's a diva, Doug does one take and then just stares at me and licks his lips. I'm like, Jesus, dude, can you just give me something here? I said, you're running from robots. Show some emotion. He was terrible. I'll never work with him again. No, he's great.
Yeah, but he has a point on the back end. So
yeah, he's the only one with points on the back end.
Guys, it's been really fun talking with you. It sounds like you had a ball on this. It sounds like you actually love each other, and that's a good thing.
True.
So thank you all. Thank you, Mike L, Jeff, Alan, Mike R, Lindsay. And I appreciate it very much. We'll be online soon with this or on YouTube. I appreciate it. And film's great and funny and heartwarming and excellent.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, it was great talking to you.
Nice
Good
talking with
knowing
you.
you.
Too. See ya. Now we're gonna fade out. We're gonna fade out because we haven't built that into the Zoom yet. So we're gonna just do it. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.